In this video, we will be replacing the rear differential fluid in this F-150. The rear differential is located at the back of the vehicle between the two tires. On this particular vehicle, there is only a fill plug, which is located right here. There is not a drain plug. To remove the plug in the differential, we're going to be taking a 3/8" ratchet with no socket, and we're going to use the end of that to loosen the plug up. Now, if the plug is stuck, you might want to use some penetrating oil to loosen it up. It also doesn't hurt to use a drip pan underneath it as you take the plug out, just in case any fluid comes out. Now, you want to take a real close look at the plug, because this plug has a magnet that will collect any metallic particles that is inside of our differential. I'm going to take this and clean it off, and we're going to see how much residue will come off. Now, based on the amount of residue on here, I'm probably going to guess that the differential fluid has not been changed in a very long time, if it has ever been changed. Now, for most vehicles, you can use Amsoil's fluid extraction pump. If you take a look inside of the fill plug, you'll notice that there is an obstruction, and our fluid extraction pump tube is not going to fit in the opening. Our next option is to remove the differential cover plate, and this will drain all the fluid out and give us access inside of there to clean it out. Now, when we loosen these bolts, we don't want to go around in a circle. We want to move across from the previous bolt we loosened. So I'll start here, then I'm going to jump up here, jump over here, jump over here. And what this is going to do is evenly reduce the pressure of the cover plate. Now, it's important that we put a drip pan below our cover, because as we loosen the bolts, there is a chance that some of the fluid will leak out right away. Now, the manufacturer has used a silicone type gasket, and even though we're loosening up the bolts, some might still leak out a little bit. Now, all of the bolts are out, and our differential cover is still stuck on by that gasket. If I just pull this off right now, fluid's going to go everywhere. So we're going to want to real carefully start opening it up at the bottom and see if we can let a little bit of the fluid drain out. Now, I'm going to be taking a real small flathead screwdriver, and I'm going to very carefully place it in between the mating surfaces, and I'm going to try to peel it away just very gently. You want to make sure you don't damage the mating surfaces, otherwise it has a difficult time sealing. And as you peel this away ever so slightly, we can let that fluid drain out for a little while until we get the majority of it drained. According to the manufacturer, the rear differential lubricant should be changed every 30,000 miles or 2 years. And also, when you do perform this procedure, you want to have driven the vehicle prior to doing this, so the fluid will be warmed up a little bit. The fluid that we're using is very, very thick, and if it's warmed up just a little bit, then it will flow out a little bit easier. And once the majority has been removed, we can remove our cover. It's always good just to do a visual inspection of the teeth, just to make sure none of them are broken or there's no big cracks or chips in them. In the bottom of our differential, we actually have a little pool of fluid that has not drained out. If I take my finger and scrape it along the bottom, you can see there's some metal particles that's in the bottom. So we're going to want to make sure we clean this out also. Inside our cover, we're going to take a rag and we need to clean this out. You can see the amount of contaminants inside of here. Because this rear differential fluid probably hasn't been changed for almost 100,000 miles, there's a lot of buildup. Had we used just the extraction pump, we wouldn't have been able to clean off the cover like this. But if the previous owner had done the preventative maintenance along the way, it wouldn't look like this. Then we're also going to need to take a gasket scraper and scrape off any of the old gasket material. You want to be very careful though so that you don't score or damage the mating surface. Now that our cover is as clean as we can get it, we're going to shift our focus back to the differential. So a couple things we want to do. We want to clean the mating surface of any old gasket material, and we also want to clean out this pool of old differential fluid in the bottom. The other thing I'm going to do is squirt a little bit of differential fluid over the teeth and hopefully clean out any little bits of particles in there that are sitting on the teeth. Now, according to Amsoil's website, this particular model of vehicle takes 2.75 quarts of severe gear 75W140. Now, it is worth noting, one of the tags that came off when I took the bolts out did give specifications for the rear differential, and it is 75W140. And it's interesting that they put on there synthetic oil only. So Ford must apparently like Amsoil products. Now, since I only need 2.75 quarts, I'm going to take the remaining quart and I'm going to pump it with my Amsoil bottle pump, and I'm just going to kind of hose off some of the components with the new differential fluid. And this is going to help clean out any additional contaminants. And then I'm going to come back with a rag and clean off any residual differential fluid that's left in there. After that, we'll take our gasket scraper and clean off the mating surface. Again, you want to be very careful that you don't scratch it or score it or put any divots in it, because then it won't seal very good. Now, as you clean off the gasket material, you want to make sure that none falls inside of the differential, and if it does, you have to make sure you clean that out before we reassemble this back together. To make the new gasket for reassembly, we're going to use Permatex's Ultra Blue silicone gasket maker, and this is going to seal our cover to our differential. We're going to be putting an even bead of about a 1/16 inch to a 1/4 inch around the entire gasket. And around each bolt hole. And once we get that gasket made, we're going to want to assemble it immediately. In a differential, there's a lot of metal-to-metal contact. Amsoil's Severe Gear provides better bearing protection, better friction, better heat reduction, increased efficiency, and extended service life. Specifically, it's excellent if you're doing towing, hauling, steep hill driving. Anytime you have an application that requires a little bit extra power, this does excellent. Now that all our bolts are finger tight, we're going to let the gasket material sit and set up for about 1 hour. Now that we've let our gasket material sit for about an hour, we're going to come back and torque each of the bolts, but again, we're not going to go around in a circle. We're going to be going across, 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 until all the bolts are torqued to the correct torque setting. Now we're ready to refill our differential, and I'm going to use Amsoil's bottle pump. Again, we have a bit of an obstruction, so I'm going to hold that in there and start pumping the fluid in. Now again, this is 75W140, so it's very thick, and it's going to take a little bit of time. Now you'll know it's full when a little bit of fluid starts to dribble out. You can also take your pinky and stick that in there to feel the fluid just below the fill hole. The last thing that we need to do is reinstall the fill plug and torque that to the correct torque specification. And you always want to make sure you clean up any drips or spills. Out of curiosity, I took a sample of the old differential fluid that we took out, and I also took a sample of the new differential fluid that we put in. The sample on the left is the old fluid. Obviously, it's very dirty and very contaminated, so I was glad I replaced this fluid.